Welcome back, you guys, to episode 2 of the Frivolous podcast with me, your host, Jacob, and I'm super excited to be here in this different type of episode. This is just going to be me today, and next week we'll have another guest. So if you don't remember, the format will be 1 week guest, 1 week just me. That's what I'm going to try to do. Obviously, I might not be able to get a guest booked that often because it's hard to work around my schedule and somebody else's schedule. But we're going to try the best we can to have that be the format where it's every other. I think it keeps things interesting and it keeps things like lively. You kind of can get my thoughts more on things while you can also get other people's thoughts on things. So it kind of mixes it up as opposed to just getting all the information from one person. But let me just say, wow. The feedback on episode 1 was crazy, to say the least. I'm still kind of in shock about it. I'm excited about it. I'm kind of speechless in a way. As you guys know, in the first episode, I mentioned how anxious I was just putting myself out there and putting my creative ambitions and creative dreams and aspirations out there. So when I went to go post this yesterday, I'm filming this, by the way, the day after I uploaded the first episode, so it's Thursday, April 7. And when I uploaded it, I was so anxious to share it to people. I sent it to my friends, of course, ones that knew about it, and that went well. But I was like, man, if I want people to listen to this, I gotta post it everywhere, just like I talked about with Eric. And I did it, and it went way better than I could have ever anticipated. And it's really awesome, and I really appreciate the support that I got from everybody that listens or watches this podcast. It was really cool, and it really means a lot to me. I'm not really great sometimes about expressing that gratitude, but I really am grateful for it. And I'm not saying we had insane numbers. We got 4,000 listeners on the first episode, but it got more listeners than I thought. We got double digits, so it's pretty cool. I mean, it hasn't even been 24 hours since I uploaded it, and we're already over 30 views / listeners between Spotify and YouTube. So that's really cool. Oh, and Apple Podcasts. So I'm really excited about that, and I'm really grateful for it, and I'm looking forward to this episode. This episode is just me, as you can see, and I'm going to try really hard to not just ramble and repeat myself over and over. I have a tendency to be repetitive when I'm talking, and I will try really hard not to. It might not go great the first episode or two, so just give me some time. I promise I'll get better, and as this thing goes on, because obviously I'm not going to be great from the start. Yeah, your guys' support was just insane, and I can't thank you guys enough, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how this podcast goes. Like I said in the first episode, I'm not expecting this to be anything huge. I had friends messaging me being like, this could be big, this is insane. I don't know about all that. I'm trying to just focus on one episode at a time. I'm kind of just focusing on making this the best that I can. And I know that there were things I could have improved in the first episode, and there are things I'm going to be able to improve upon each and every episode. And I'm going to try my best to improve upon it. So just hopefully you guys can give me some patience, because I know it can be annoying when you're like, why did he do that when he should have done this? And trust me, I see it sometimes too when I'm editing. And I can't even tell you guys, man, I wish I didn't have to edit my own podcast, because hearing myself talk for an hour plus was not the most fun way to spend my weekend. But, obviously I don't mind doing the hard work. I like the parts when Eric was talking, and I got to edit that. But hearing your own voice on a recording, what's with that, by the way? How come we sound so different in our heads, and then you hear the recording, and then that's supposedly what you really sound like? That's awful, and I'm sorry. I don't know how I even have double-digit listeners when my voice sounds like what it sounds like. Why is that a thing? I know there's some science behind it for sure. I'm not, actually asking for the reasoning. It's just so weird how that works. Because in my head, I sound completely different, and I'm like, oh, this doesn't sound bad. And then I hear a recording, and I'm like, oh, I probably shouldn't talk anymore, ever. I just think that's stupid. I don't know where I'm even going with this. One thing I did want to talk about, I want to talk about two things from that last episode, is the first thing my friend messaged me and he said, hey, I really enjoyed the episode, but I would prefer if it was like one continuous like cut, like if it was just the raw footage of the podcast. And that's a great point, 100%. And if you watch the video, you can kind of notice there were cuts along the video, and you might have even heard it when you were listening to the podcast as well. And I tried my best to make it as smooth as possible, but obviously in some cases that wasn't possible. So I'm gonna try my best to keep it the raw footage and just have it be one continuous thing, 'cause it makes my job easier and it makes it more aesthetically pleasing to listen to and watch. But I can't guarantee that, because with that episode with Eric, we had over 2 hours of footage, and my friend was like, well, I'll watch a 2-hour podcast, and I appreciate that, but not everybody is him. So I don't think everybody would be willing to do a 2-hour podcast, at least right now. Maybe if this thing actually gets traction, but my goal is to keep it as close to an hour as possible. Hour and a half would be my max. And I think when I have guests, I'm going to have to do editing, because I'm going to be asking them a lot and we're going to be talking about a lot of things. The episodes with just me should be a lot more continuous and should be a lot more just raw footage and less editing. That's my goal. Obviously, there will be edits and cuts still here and there, because I'm going to stutter or not enunciate, or I'm going to mess up, or I'm going to need to take a breath, or not like what I said. You never know. So I will try to make it as much raw footage as possible, but I can't guarantee anything. And I know it doesn't need to be perfect. I'm not like trying to pretend that I don't mess up when I talk, or that I don't like slur words together sometimes, but I want it to be as professional sounding and as good as possible. So that's what I'm shooting for. I've already had probably like a million cuts to this episode. It feels like, I don't know. I've had a lot of just pauses that I needed to take a break on. It's really hard to just sit in a room and talk to yourself and like stay on track. When you have somebody to talk to, you can bounce ideas off of them. They can bounce ideas off of you, and it can make you think of other things to talk about. With me, I've got nobody to bounce ideas off of other than myself, and I have things I want to talk about. They're written down right here, but it's kind of hard to sometimes stay on track or to not like go on side tangents. So I do apologize for that if there's already been a couple edits, but I'm doing my best. The second thing I wanted to talk about from that episode is what's with me and the word phenomenal. Did you guys catch that? I said the word phenomenal probably 4 or 5 times that episode. And I'll be honest, guys, I don't use that word in my daily life. I think that day was the most I've ever used that word. I don't know why that was what I used to describe everything. I could have gone with fantastic, amazing, great, wonderful, awestruck, awe-inspiring, so many words. But yeah, I chose phenomenal every single time. Don't know why, but I was listening to it while I was editing it, and I'm just like, why do I keep saying this? It almost like cringing at myself, just like, oh, dude, use another word. There's so many words you can just use to describe that. And the worst part is I couldn't cut it because it fit in the conversation too perfectly, so I couldn't actually like finagle my way around it so where you guys didn't hear me say phenomenal 4 or 5 times. I didn't cut any of the phenomenals, unfortunately. That's just one of those things that you look back on and you're like, man, why am I talking like that? And I'm sure I'll do the same thing when I edit this episode too. But that's just how it goes. I think we are our hardest critic, so I'm gonna look at it and analyze it a lot harder than you guys will probably. And I'm sure so many people notice that, like, why does he keep doing that? And I think it's good to kind of look back on that and be able to make fun of yourself and laugh at it, because obviously it's just something silly and dumb. It's not like really anything important. And I think it's funny to be able to like look at that and be like, wow, I can't believe I'm doing that. And you can laugh at it, but also work on improving it. And I think that should apply to a lot of things in life. A lot of people take themselves and just the things they do really seriously. And to a degree, that's good. Obviously, you should take your job serious, especially if it's like a career job. But you should take your job serious, take school serious, things like that, take relationships serious. But there also needs to be a time where you can laugh at yourself and acknowledge mess ups and be a lot easier on yourself than you are, because you're going to mess up. Dumb things are going to happen in your job. Funny things are going to happen in your job. Dumb things are going to happen to you or at school. So many things are going to happen in life. And I feel like if you just can't sit back and laugh at yourself or at the situation you're in sometimes, it's going to make things really hard for you. I mean, you see it all the time on the internet nowadays. You see people who can't take a joke, or they can't, laugh at themselves or laugh with others without attacking somebody. And it's just like, what are we, like, how did we get here? Why are we so like concerned about people laughing with us or even at us to a degree? Like, my friends and I joke around all the time, and I think those are some of my best laughs when I'm being roasted or they're being roasted, and we're just joking around having a good time. It doesn't mean we don't love each other and don't care about each other, but that's just something that we do. And I just think that, and I noticed it a lot with people around my age, early 20s or even like high schoolers. They're so hard on themselves, and they're like so serious, and they're trying to just be this thing and try to act a certain way, when it's just like, just be yourself. At the end of the day, just be yourself, because being yourself is awesome, and it's so much easier. When I shared to my personal stories on Instagram and Snapchat, like advertising my podcast, I was very anxious, I'll admit, but not as much as I thought I was going to be. I was actually like, all right, let's do this, And then once I did it, I felt awesome. Like, I felt, I don't want to say like different, but it really felt like a weight was lifted off of my shoulders. And I think that's because I was finally putting myself out there, and I was finally sharing to people who kind of know me but don't know me super well. I was sharing with them, hey, this is who I am. This is who I've been. Like, this is the type of stuff that I like to do, the type of stuff that I'm interested in. And now people can actually kind of see who I am, as opposed to who they think I am. And obviously, they still have their perspective on me, and it's not necessarily going to be who I am, but they have a much better idea of me now, and it feels so nice to be able to put that out there and to be able to be like, all right, this is me. If you don't like it, then I understand, but this is the type of stuff that I like, and I like to be creative and do things online like this, and this is who I am. And I got so much feedback from my friends and from people that I actually haven't even talked to in a while, some of them, and they gave me so much positive support and feedback about this podcast, and it was really heartwarming to me. I woke up today to some text messages saying that they were listening to it or that they loved it. I've heard so many great things. And yeah, there probably were people who rolled their eyes when they saw the story, or who listened to it and thought it sucked. I don't know, but I didn't hear from them. And so you never hear from them. Obviously, if you are a big celebrity or have a big podcast, you're going to hear from the trolls online. I don't really care about that. But I was so focused when I was talking to Eric, so focused on the negative aspect of it. But he had a great point, and it came to fruition. I didn't hear from those negative people. They didn't message me. They didn't say anything. And that's because, why would they? Why would they take the time out of their day to message me and be like, hey, this thing sucks, or this is stupid, why are you doing that? When I got, 10, 15, 20 messages from friends and acquaintances saying, hey, this is really cool. There's just one, actually, and I want to give him a shout out. It's my friend Caleb, that I worked with him a couple years ago. We worked at a pumpkin patch together, and he messaged me, and I haven't talked to him basically since we stopped working there. And he just said, hey, I don't really listen to podcasts, but I thought I'd give it a listen, and I thought it was really cool. It gave me this vibe from, I think it was called Super Mega. I don't know what Super Mega is, but he said it gave him that kind of vibe. But he said that was a compliment. So if you know what Super Mega is, I guess you can kind of attest to whether it gave you that kind of vibe or not. But he just complimented, and I was like, that was like so nice of him to do, and I really appreciated that, because, like, first of all, I haven't talked to him in a while, and second of all, he's like, yeah, I don't even listen to podcasts, and I thought I would just listen to like 5 minutes of it. I ended up listening to the whole thing. I thought it was really good. It sounded really professional, and like that, I was just like, my goodness, dude, like this means so much to me, because I was so struggling with the idea of even sharing this, and I put myself out there, and now I'm getting feedback from you. Like, that's awesome. And I got obviously support from really close friends and close family and all that. So I'm not saying like he was the only one that gave me support, but I wanted to just give him a shout out, because it was kind of unexpected, and it meant a lot to me, because obviously I knew my homies would back me up, and I knew people that were really close to me would be like, oh, this is awesome. But to have that from somebody who knows me well but doesn't know me like that well, and also I haven't talked to in a couple years, like that was really cool to me. So shout out to you, Caleb. That was really cool and really nice of you. And I'm going to keep trying, you guys. Like, I'm going to try to improve this as much as I can. I know this setup that I have isn't necessarily the best, but I'm working with what I got, and as long as I can, I'll try to continuously make improvements on it. Obviously, it's not cheap to improve setups, especially if it requires moving spaces or getting more lights or cameras or whatever, or a better mic, whatever. So I'm going to try, and I'm going to try to improve myself and improve the quality of the podcast every single episode. So just bear with me on that stuff. Not that the last episode was like unprofessional or bad quality, but I'm just saying, there may be times you're like, could have been a nicer camera, or could have had a nicer sound quality. I'm doing my best. So, yeah, I'm really excited to be on this journey. I feel so euphoric now that it's shared and it's out there. When it comes time next Wednesday for me to upload episode 2 and share it, I'm not going to feel like scared or anything. I'm like, all right, episode 2's up. Go listen to it, guys. And I know there's people that are like, oh my goodness, I've been waiting for a whole week for this episode to come out. Like, there are people who will legitimately be looking forward to Wednesday now because of my podcast. And that is really cool to me. That's kind of something that I wanted when I started this podcast. I think I mentioned it in the episode with Eric, but if not, I'll mention it now. This podcast, I'm not starting this for money or for fame, anything like that. Obviously, if I make money and if I get famous off of it, I wouldn't be sad or mad about that. I'd be like, oh, that's really cool. But I wanted to do this because it's a good way for me to use my creative energy, and it's a good thing to just put that into. I'm putting all my creative energy into this, and so far it's a product that I'm really proud of. So that's one. Two, since I have the psychology degree, I'm really hoping that I can get comments on social media or whatnot about people's struggles, and then maybe they'll open up to me and ask for advice, and I can give them that advice on the episode, or the guests I have on, if they're struggling with something, I can talk to them and give them advice, or maybe give them insight as to why they felt a certain way years ago or whatnot. And third thing is just to help my listeners maybe in a generic way. I think podcasts in general can make people laugh. Obviously, this is a comedy podcast. And I know for me, when I was at the gym, or even when I was just working and I was able to listen to podcasts and I was feeling down, comedy podcasts would make me feel better. You're laughing. I've cried laughing listening to some comedy podcasts before, and it's been awesome. And I'm not saying you're going to cry laughing watching or listening to this, because I don't think I'm that funny. But I want it to be able to be something that people can keep their minds occupied for 30 minutes, 40 minutes, however long the episode is, and not think about the things that are bothering them. Or maybe I talk about a piece of advice or something generic in my life that I diagnosed and figured out or whatnot, and somebody's like, oh my goodness, that applies perfectly to this situation that I'm struggling with, and that helps me out tremendously. That's awesome. That's the third thing. Those are the three main reasons why I'm doing this podcast, and if I'm accomplishing even one of those per episode, then I'm, in my opinion, doing my job, doing what I sought out to do. That's kind of a rant. That's kind of a tangent. I know it's supposed to be funnier. I'm sorry. But I just thought about that and I wanted to talk about it. But while I was saying that, I was like, man, I need to be a little bit funnier. This is supposed to be a comedy podcast too. Can we just talk about something real fast? This isn't even written down. How weird is it that I'm just sitting in a room talking to myself right now? How weird is that? If you just took away the microphone, I'm basically 50% of mental hospital rooms, right? I'm just sitting here talking to myself, acting like I'm on a podcast. What? It's just so weird to think about. If somebody walked by my window right now, which they couldn't, but if they did, and they just saw me, and they didn't see the microphone, and they just saw me talking, and they didn't see anybody else in the room, they would think I'm insane, and they'd probably go running the other way. They'd be like, he's just having a full conversation with himself. I don't know what's going on. It's the voices again. I just was thinking about that. How weird is this? I'm talking to myself. I'm technically talking to a camera. But it's still weird. It's still weird to just be sitting in a room out loud talking. And I do talk to myself pretty frequently, as I mentioned in the first episode. But not like this. This is a whole other level. Wow, that was easy for me to say. I love stuttering on my podcast, dude. I love it. It's so much fun. Okay. Okay. All right. Speaking of that annoyed me stuttering annoyed me, and this brings up a perfect topic that I wanted to bring up. Pet peeves. Oh my goodness, you guys. So I will say this. My friends, some of my really close friends, they know that I'm strongly opinionated on certain things. Not anything important, but really dumb things I'm strongly opinionated on. I'm pretty opinionated on the Marvel movies, from last episode. I just have these really strong opinions on really dumb things that don't matter. And some of them can cause me to go on these rants. And my friend, he always makes jokes dude, I love Jacob's rants. It's one of here's one of Jacob's classic rants coming up and stuff like that. I'm not saying you're gonna get one of those from me, but I'm just saying I supposedly have really fun and really funny rants sometimes. Do I see it? Not really. And I think there's a lot of pressure on it that I just put on, but that's fine. It's cool. I just put a lot of pressure on me. It's fine. It's cool. It's whatever. No big deal. But pet peeves. Okay. There's a couple that I just thought of off the top of my head when I wrote down this topic, and I'm hoping I can just think of more as I keep going. But this one is very specific. So you guys know when you're opening cheese is the thing that I think of first because it's kind of just one of the most basic ones. But when you're opening a new package of cheese and it has the tear here thing, dude, why do those sometimes not tear there? It literally says tear here, and yet we're not going to tear here? Like you're literally, it's one job. The whole purpose of whoever designed that and whoever manufactured it and whoever made it, put the little tear into it is so that it tears, okay? But no, half the time it doesn't tear, so I'm sitting there trying to rip that thing open, but not even the Hulk get into that. Like, I swear it's like Mjolnir, freaking Thor's hammer, and I just butchered the name of that, but we won't talk about that. It's like you have to be like the chosen one to be able to use that. You have to be worthy to open it up and to tear there. Like, it's ridiculous. I'm just like, dude, I'm a pretty slim guy. I'm not gonna be able to tear it if it needs, more than 500 weights of force on it. 500 weights of force. I don't think that's anywhere close to being a real thing, what I just said, but ignore it. But you get what I'm saying. Like, why does that half the time not work? It's just so annoying. And then, because most of the time when you're doing it, it's resealable. Like, you're tearing above the resealable part, and then you just have the part where you can seal it up, so you don't have to, like, put it in another bag. And that's an awesome idea. But half the time, you have to just cut through and cut under the resealable part because you can't get it open in the first place. So it defeats the purpose of two items, the tear here and the resealable part. And it's so frustrating to me. And I'm getting worked up. And this is just about cheese. I'm thinking about cheese right now, and I'm getting upset. So that's cool. There's probably some psychological diagnosis I could do to myself right now, but we're not going to do that. But do you guys know what I'm talking about? I hope that somebody's sitting there and be like, oh, dude, I know exactly what he's talking about. Because it's just so dumb to me how it has one purpose, it's one design, it's meant to do this one thing, and half the time it doesn't work. I mean, I guess you could say that about, like, the ice cream machines at McDonald's. Those never work. And it's like, hey, man, you're an ice cream machine that's supposed to make ice cream, but you can't make ice cream ever because you're always broken. Why are you always broken? I don't know. I couldn't tell you. Okay, well, we'll move on from cheese and other dairy items because that was a bit intense. I can admit I got a little worked up there. Okay, another pet peeve of mine is slow walkers. Like, listen, I get that we don't all have to be going at the same pace. Everybody walks differently. Some people have shorter legs than others and longer legs than others. But hey, just walk a little bit faster, okay? Just a little bit for me, okay? Just a little bit. And if you're not going to walk fast, don't be in the way. Like, it's always the slow walkers at the store that have, like, a cart and then, like, their whole family is taking up the walkway. And so it's just like, hey, I need to get by you slow pokes, okay? And then I have to, like, skirt around them like I'm passing them like it's a NASCAR race. And it's just, and I feel like kind of a jerk where I'm just, like, zooming past them. And I feel like I'm being judged for walking so fastly past them. But it's like, hey, you should be walking a little bit faster. I'm not saying you need to be running around Target. But hey, we can walk a little bit faster, can't we? I mean, I think we can. And also, that brings up another pet peeve. Don't just stand in the middle of the walkway or the aisle. How about that? And that applies to everywhere. I can't tell you how many times I'm out of the store and it's either somebody slow walking or it's the family. It's like a family and there's like four of them walking all next to each other. Like, hey, walk in lines. Walk in vertical lines, okay? Because this horizontal stuff's not going to work for me because you're taking up the whole lane for both sides. Now people can't come this way and people can't go past you that way. So you're just causing a traffic jam and it's making me mad, okay? Like, I get you all want to talk and converse and have good family time, but we don't all have to be standing next to each other, do we? Okay? We don't all have to be doing that. No, I don't think so. And if we are going to be doing that, you better be walking pretty fast, all right? Because if not, I'm going to be a little upset. I mean, am I wrong? I may sound like a jerk here, but am I wrong? Like I said, I don't think you need to be walking incredibly fast at a store, but if you're going to walk slow, you should be out of people's ways because it's kind of inconvenient. I guess I'm being inconsiderate. Just saying you should move out of the way for fast walkers because I'm a fast walker. Okay, I'll admit I'm being a little bit selfish. I can admit that. And I'm getting a little worked up and I'm getting a little bit selfish because of that. So I can admit where I'm wrong. But I do have a problem with slow walkers. I don't know why. It's just frustrating me. And my dad walks really fast too, so that's where I get it from. Because as a kid, I remember I felt like I was running to catch up to him. Like my dad's only a couple inches shorter than me, but he walks really fast, just really fast. And I don't know why. That's just who he is. My dad's very go. And there's nothing wrong with that. but he walks really fast. And I remember as a kid, I would be taking these long strides trying to catch up to him, and I still couldn't, because I have little bit of legs. And so I'm just like, I felt like I was running and jogging in my flip-flops in Target, just running around while we're looking at stuff. And that's where I get it from. And my girlfriend gives me flack for it all the time. She's like, why are you walking? Oh, sorry, fiance. I do that sometimes, sorry. Still not used to it, but, a little humble brag. Fiance. Sheesh. Anyways, no, she gives me flack for it all the time. She'll be like, why are you walking so fast? Or you walk so fast, like, slow down. I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, it's in my veins. It's who I am now. So thanks, Dad, for that. I actually do enjoy it. That's not a sarcastic thanks. I enjoy walking fast because I get to places faster, and I'm not one of those slow walkers that people are bugged about, that people like me would be bugged about. So I'd say that's a win-win. Also, speaking of slow thing, dude, actually, I don't care if you drive slow. I mean, I kind of care. That is kind of annoying, especially if we're talking about, like, it's a 55 and you're going, like, 30. That'll make me boiling mad. That'll make my boiling mad? I don't think that's a term, but it is now. It'll make my blood boil, that's for sure. But I don't think boiling mad's a thing. So I'm just messing up a lot of sayings today, dude. Awesome. No, I just think that, like, if you're going to drive slow, that's okay. Like, if it's 5 under, that's annoying, but whatever. If you're driving the speed limit, that, in my opinion, is still 5 under. But hey, if you're driving the speed limit, I can't judge you for that. But the 30 and the 55, which I've had happen to me many, many times, is so annoying. Because it's like, dude, what do you not get? You see the cars driving by you. They're clearly going faster. You see the speed limit signs. And that's what I don't get too. Do people just not see the big signs that show the miles per hour? Or if you're not from the U.S., the kilometers per hour? Like, do people just not see that at all? And just, like, are they just blind to it? Because, like, it kind of worries me. Like, and I get not necessarily, I don't always see the signs either. But it's like, when I'm driving, I have a pretty, unless I haven't been there before, I have a pretty good idea of the speed limit around. I'm like, oh, it's either 30 or 35. It's one of the two. Like, so I don't get how people can just not know that the speed limit from where they're at. Like, it blows my mind. And here's the thing, if I'm driving somewhere that I've never been before, guess what? I probably have a GPS, and that GPS usually tells you what the speed limit is. It usually has the same picture of the sign. So, but that's not even the worst thing about driving. There's one thing that is 1,000% worse, and I don't think it's talked about enough. People talk about slow drivers, which rightfully so. But dude, the people who are brake happy, oh my God. I don't think I get madder. I don't think I can possibly get madder than when people in front of me are just brake happy. They're just tapping, tap, 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 brake, 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 brake. And the car in front of them is like a football field away and they're stopped, but they're like, oh, let me start just, instead of just gradually slowing down, like, you can put your foot on the brake and like start to slow down, but no, it's brake, slow down, brake, slow down, brake. It's like, just hold it. Hey, just hold it. Okay? Are you trying to speak to me in Morse code? No? Then just hold it. Because even if you were trying to speak to me in Morse code, I'm not going to be able to translate. Okay? Like, that's what it feels like sometimes. They're just like beep, beep, dash, beep, beep. Like, what are we doing? Just do one gradual, slow break into it. Okay? You don't have to press it 85 times. And I get if you can't do it properly on the first time. Like, oh, I overestimated it. I need to, brake again or whatnot. That's totally fine. But when you're doing it 5, 6, 7, 8 times and the car in front of you is not braking, oh, that's even worse. When the car in front of them's not braking and they just keep going and going and going, and yet the car in front of you is like, tap, 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 tap. And I'm like, what are we braking for? Huh? Is Casper driving out here? Is the boatmobile from Mermaid Man and Barnacle Boy and SpongeBob, is that what's in front of us? Because if that's the case, then my bad. You see something I can't. Clearly you have a fourth eye fourth eye. Man, I don't know what's wrong with me today. But you have a third eye that can see into a different dimension than me, and you know something I don't. So hey, you're a better person than me. Cool. But if that's not the case, then what are we doing? What are we doing? What am I doing? Why am I getting so worked up about this? See, this is not going to be a good episode because I'm talking about stupid stuff like this. But I'm trying to make it funny, okay? I'm trying to make it like a mixture, and that can be hard by yourself. It's hard to be funny when you're by yourself. But I'm trying, and I hope I've made at least somebody laugh. If I've gotten at least one laugh, then that's all that matters. And I know I'll probably watch it back, and I'll probably laugh because I laugh at myself all the time. And I think I'm hilarious, and it's the worst. Like, they always say, hey, don't laugh at your own jokes. It's not cool. Like, people don't like that. Like, and I'm like, dude, I'm sorry. I can't help it. I laugh at my own jokes all the time. I laugh at my own jokes more than anybody else laughs at my own jokes. So at least somebody found it funny, right? Like, it's not my fault that my humor is so stupid that you didn't find it funny, but I'm sitting here being like, dude, that joke was so dumb, but I found it funny, so I'm going to laugh at it. And honestly, most people I know laugh at their own jokes, and I've never once thought like, hey, that's condescending or conceited, or condescending I don't think is the right word, but conceited or arrogant. You know, I'm like, oh, they think it's funny too. That's good. Like, they wouldn't make the joke if they didn't think it was funny. Like, hey, man, I'm not a stand-up comedian. Like, I'm not going to laugh at my own jokes. And even if a stand-up comedian did laugh at their own jokes, guess what? They're a comedian. Their jokes they're getting paid to be funny. So I'm not judging that. Who am I to judge? Laugh at what you want to laugh at. If you're making yourself laugh, you're making yourself laugh. Ain't nothing wrong with it. I think we need to end that stigma, okay? Just laugh at your own jokes. Laugh at anybody else's jokes. Who cares? Who cares? Laugh at what you want to laugh at. That's the big message for my show, it seems like, is just to be you. Laugh at what you want to laugh at. Last episode was kind of listen to what you want to listen to and be who you want to be. You know, just be yourself, guys. I think we're so focused on what other people want us to be, and we put so much pressure on that, and we just think, hey, my parents want me to do this, or my friends want me to do this, or my fiance, girlfriend, boyfriend, partner, whoever wants me to do this. When in reality is you need to do what you want to do, and you need to do what's going to make you happy. And that's something I struggled with for a while. You know, I was thinking like, hey, what do I want to do with my life? You know, what is it going to be? Am I going to be a journalist, which is what I started off as? Am I going to do this film arts thing? Like, how is that going to work? Am I going to do psychology? You know, and I still kind of struggle with what I really, truly want to do. And I mean, I think I do actually know. I mean, first of all, I love doing this podcast, so it'd be cool if I can make this a job. I don't realistically think that will happen, but you never know. And I love writing. I love writing TV shows and movie scripts and stuff like that. And I have stuff written, but sometimes I'm like, is that what I really want to do? Let's say I sold a couple scripts and I got some traction as a writer. Am I really going to want to be writing scripts and staring in front of a screen or a notepad for, you know, the next 30, 40 years of my life? Honestly, I think I would like that. I think I would love working in a writer's room with other funny people and hearing the stuff that they come up with and be like, oh my gosh, that's hilarious. I wish I would have thought of that, but that's insane that your brain came up with that. So I do kind of think I would like that. But also, that's hard work. Like, writing is hard work. Like, and coming up with stuff, new material all the time is hard work. And to be fair, when you think about it, this podcast involves a lot of writing. I have to write down ideas and topics and things like that. And I have to try to talk about things that I don't talk about in other episodes, because if I keep talking about the same things, it's just going to be repetitive, and then you're not going to want to listen because you're like, oh, he's talked about this story 4 times already. Why would I want to listen to it again? Which I actually just made that connection, honestly, that the writing aspect of podcasts. So that's kind of cool. That kind of makes more sense why I want to do it as well. It's another creative thing that I get to do because of podcasts. But then when I decided, like, hey, this story's kind of all over the place, and I'm sorry, but I hope you guys have followed along. But when I was the film arts major and I was thinking about, you know, the writing aspect of things and if I wanted to do that with my life, you know, I was thinking like, yeah, I do. Like, I think entertainment industry is something that's always spoken to me. You know, I've always wanted to entertain people in some facet, whether it was, you know, content creation, podcasting, you know, in Hollywood types of. I always wanted to, because I always felt like. So here's the end of the backstory to that. I really feel like I don't owe it to you guys, but I should tell you guys it. The reason I got into the entertainment industry, I was probably 6th, 7th, 8th grade. I started to get like depressed when I was around that age and get very anxious. And I didn't realize I had anxiety at the time, but like looking back, I definitely did. And I figured out I had anxiety probably like freshman, sophomore year of high school, and same with depression. And when I was down and sad, which was very often, it was most days, I would typically watch a comedy. Because obviously, when you're feeling down, you're going to do one of two things. You're either going to watch something funny to try to cheer you up, or you're going to listen to sad music or watch sad movies that reinforce that feeling. And sometimes when you're sad and you listen to sad music, it does hit really hard. It hits really different. And you're like, wow, hey, I kind of needed that. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I'm saying? You kind of need that sometimes. Just like, all right, you know what? I know I'm sad and I should try to make myself happier. But I'm gonna listen to some sad music, and it's gonna make me think of things, and it's gonna just hit me hard, but it's gonna feel good at the same time. Like it feels good, but you don't feel better. It's the weirdest thing. Uh, but I would tend to lean towards the comedy thing. I was really into movies and TV shows. Well, I still am, but like I was really getting into them at that age. That was around 2012, 2013. So streaming, Netflix and stuff like that, that was becoming really big at that time. It's not nearly as big as it is now, but like that was starting to become more prevalent at the time. So I was able, everything was at my fingertips. And so I was watching more and more. And I would even illegally watch movies and comedies. I'd really just Google the movie and then full movie free or whatever. And I would eventually find it and I'd have it on my tablet and I'd be playing video games on the side or whatnot. And I just remember being like, man, these made me feel so good for that hour and a half or whatever. And it was really nice to feel that way and just get my mind off of, the sadness and the monotony of my day or my week or my life or whatever. And I think that was kind of when I was like, I want to do that for people. I want to be able to write things. Or there was probably a point in time where I wanted to act, but like, let's be real. I don't have the face of an actor, nor do I have the acting skills of an actor. But there was definitely a time, or the confidence, but there was definitely a time where I was like, hey, I want to be able to do this for people because I know I'm not the only person out there that watches comedies to feel better. Or I know I'm not the only person that watched this movie and laughed and felt like it was really funny and it made me feel better because of it. And I'm like, man, I was like, could I imagine writing a movie that was super funny and super like thought provoking maybe, but just something that made people like not think about their problems for an hour and a half or 2 hours, however long the movie is. And they just thought it was funny and it's a movie that they want to go back to. I'm like, hey man, this is like I don't want to say guilty pleasure, but it's like my go-to when I'm feeling down type of movie. It just makes me feel better. Like, you know how awesome it would be to write a movie like that and to just be able to impact people's lives in that way? And I always thought about that. I was like, man, I have the ability as a writer to do that. If I decided to go down the writing path, I can do that. And if I can make it big and be famous, whether it's, TVs or movies, or there's probably a point in time where I wanted to write books too, but any facet of writing, that can make its way to a large number of people, like I want to do that. And it's not because of the money, but it's because the bigger my audience, the wider range of people that I can reach and the more people I can theoretically help make feel better. So that was like the real reasoning why I wanted to get into the film industry. And I do think there's some really cool people in the film industry as well. I'm not going to name names because knowing my luck, I'll name their name and they'll get canceled in like 3 weeks and I'll look like an idiot. I'll get canceled for supporting them because it'll get taken out of context. But I thought it would have been really cool. And I still think it'd be really cool. But there came a time when I was in my gap year and I had really been struggling and I was going through a lot of new things at the time. I was like, man, do I really want to do this when there's a chance that it's not even going to come to fruition? Am I really going to become a writer because of this degree, or is this degree just something I'm doing because I don't want to admit that there's a chance I could fail? And I'll admit, it was the second one. I didn't want to admit that there was a chance that I could fail at this dream that I've had since I was 13, 14 years old. And I don't think anybody wants to admit that. But then, and it's one thing that kind of messed me up, and not messed me up in like a permanent way, but like just like made me sad and kind of changed my perspective, was thinking about parents and adults now. Think about your parents or just some adults, they might think about the dreams that they had when they were 13, 14 years old, or even in high school, and then think about where they're at now. Like, did they accomplish those dreams? And I just thought about it and I was like, honestly, like there's so many people out there that want to make it big and be famous in different facets: acting, writing, producing, directing, etc. Like, I'm not unique in that, which is okay. I don't mind not being unique. But it's like, you think that these adults out there that are working, accounting jobs or, working in an office, this or that, you think that they didn't have dreams like that once? And some of them might not have. Obviously, some people are very happy with their jobs that they do, and there's nothing wrong with working in those type of jobs, like accounting or office jobs. Those are great jobs. But it's like that. Some people that are working there, that might have not been their dream. But they're working there and they've been working there. So why would I be different? I guess that was something that I struggled with, is why would I be different? So I decided, hey, I'm going to just get this psychology degree, which I did get convinced from some close friends of mine, some close family friends of mine. They kind of convinced me to like, hey, you've helped out a lot of people with your volunteering, because I volunteer every year. that you've helped out a lot of people doing that, and you've kind of been counseling people doing that. And I think it just makes sense that you pursue this psychology degree so you can do that. And I was kind of reluctant. At first I was like, haha, no, I'm not going to do that. But then I really thought about it, and I was like, if this writing thing doesn't work out like I want it to, what am I going to do? You know, I would have gone to this university for 4 years. I would have gotten a 4-year degree, and I would have nothing to really show for it. Like, what am I going to do with a film arts degree? And I bet that there are things I could have done, and I could have gone to apply at jobs, and they would have let me in because of the degree and whatnot. But it's like, would I have been doing what I wanted to do? Like, do I want to just be some like intern on a movie set? Like, well, maybe once, but I don't want to be doing that my whole life. And so I went with this psychology degree, and I really think that kind of changed my life almost. You know, I'm just thinking about it now. My perspective on life has changed. I've definitely, my mindset has changed, which is not easy to do, by the way. You know, when I have a lot of students that I talk to at my job about just personal problems. I'm obviously not going to share anything that they share with me because it's confidential. But something that I tell them a lot, when I try to have them change their mindset, because a lot of people have negative mindsets and they're very hard on themselves and they think very negatively about themselves and their surroundings. I try to just tell them like, hey, try to like think about, turn one thing positive, just one thing. Not saying like, because you're not going to immediately be like, oh, everything's great, everything's phenomenal. Oh, I just said phenomenal. That's gonna be a word that triggers me the rest of my life. But you know, I just try to encourage them. Let's change one thing. Let's flip one thing around. Give yourself props for one thing that you've done, because you're doing a lot of all these good things, and then just see how that changes your overall mindset. Because, you know, I'm 23, so changing my mindset when I was like 20 years old or 21 years old was so hard to do, because like you've been not programmed, but you've been acting a certain way for 20 plus years or however long you've been alive for. And so it's like you're trying to break habits that you've been doing for that period of time, which is super hard to do. And obviously the older you get, the harder it gets, because it's like that saying, you can't teach an old dog new tricks, because once you know something in a certain way, it just becomes kind of ingrained in your brain. Honestly, didn't mean for that to rhyme, but you get what I'm saying. Like, it becomes like part of you. And so when sometimes you don't even realize you're doing it. It just becomes subconscious. So I try to encourage people to change their, I just had a little bit of a voice crack. Awesome, dude. Awesome. I love it. I'm 12. I'm going through puberty again. I'm not actually in my 20s. I'm actually 12. But that just changing one thing can honestly change your whole mindset. Like, slowly but surely it can. And I've had people tell me like, hey, like, you've helped me change my mindset on things because of that advice that you gave me, and you've helped me focus on the good things that I'm doing as opposed to having me focus on the bad things that I'm doing. And I do that all the time myself. I have a hard time focusing on the good things. I'm always like, oh, I could have done this better. I could have done that better. Like, oh yeah, that was good, but it could have been better. And, you know, I kind of have done that with this podcast. I think it was great the first episode, but I'm like, oh, I could have done this better, could have done that better, which is good to like pick and choose and learn from. But at the same time, it's good to look at it and be like, hey, this was really good. I see areas of improvement, which is understandable, because it's going to be impossible to be perfect, or almost impossible to be perfect doing something. But I still am appreciative, and I'm glad that the product turned out how it turned out. And that's what I try to encourage people. Look at the positive side of it. It's okay to critique yourself and to be like, hey, I could have improved here, or I should have done this better. I should have studied a little bit more. I would have had that section or whatnot. But it's also good to be like, hey, I still got a B on this test. And I should have probably gotten a worse grade. If I had studied more, I would have gotten a better grade. But I didn't study enough, and I still got a B. I'm happy about that. Or you know, whatever it is in life, that mindset is the biggest thing. You know, your perception on the situation and situations that you're faced with is really what it's going to come down to. And so that's what I want. If you're listening to this and you feel like you're kind of a negative person, try that once. You know, with one thing. I don't know what it is, with work, with school, with whatever. Just be like, hey, you know, this thing was really good. Props to myself for putting this hard work in for this major or this class that's really hard, that I don't even really want to take, but props to me for grinding through it. And even though I only have a B in the class and I want to get an A, you have a B, and it's a really hard class, and a lot of people don't get A's in this class. So you should be proud of yourself for that. So that's what I want to encourage you guys to do. I don't know if that would be considered a tangent. It kind of felt like one a little bit, but I kind of needed to be a little more serious in this episode. One thing I didn't like about the last episode too is I felt like I wasn't serious enough with him, and that's not his fault at all. I felt like I should have brought up more like psychological topics and maybe more mental health topics. So that's kind of on me that I didn't bring that up. But like I said, I'm learning. I do think the episodes by myself will be a lot more serious because it's harder for me to be funny by myself, at least at this point in time. Maybe I'll learn some things, or I'll think of topics, or you guys will suggest topics that I can talk about that'll be funny. But it's a lot easier for you to just be serious and think of, and when you're alone with your thoughts, it's a lot easier to just think about them and to talk about them. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now, and that's what you'll probably see as a common theme in the episodes by myself. And I think that's a good thing. I think it's really, like I said, this podcast, I want to talk about a lot of serious topics and mental health, and hopefully help people out, because I know people that are listening to this, and I know that they all go through things. If you're listening to this, you have something right now that's bothering you, or that you're stressed about, or whatever, or you're struggling with mental health, whether it's depression, anxiety, bipolar, an eating disorder, whatever it is. And I want this podcast to be able to be that thing where you're like, oh, that it kind of makes sense why I'm doing this right now. So, and I just want to say this, like, whatever it is you're doing, you should be proud of yourself. I have a hard time being nice to myself and giving myself credit, but I should be proud of this podcast. I am proud of this podcast. And I should be proud of the hard work that I've put into it, and the research that I've done, and the editing that I've done. I mean, I put a lot of work already into it, and this is only the second episode that I'm recording. And that you guys should do that with yourself. Whether, like, if you're in school right now, if you're in college or high school or whatever, give yourself credit. Like, you've made it this far in school, whether you're in your first year of a degree or you're in your first year of high school. It's like, hey, give yourself some credit, okay? Like, you're doing what you're doing, and as long as you can look at yourself and say, hey, I'm doing the best that I can, and even if the best that I can do isn't where I want it to be, you're still giving it your all. And if you're giving it your all on something, then you're doing it right. Sometimes your all just isn't going to be enough, and that's kind of bleak and kind of like just blunt, but that's the reality of life. Sometimes you give it your all, and you're still going to fall a little bit short, and it sucks. I've experienced that many times in life. I've submitted scripts that I was like, oh, dude, this script is really good. Obviously, there's probably a few changes here and there since it's the first draft, but hey, this script's really good. I'm going to submit it. I submitted it, and they were like, hey, this script they basically said, hey, this script sucks. I'm being dramatic. They didn't really say it like that, but there was a lot of like really hard criticism, like, hey, the main character isn't really he isn't really likable. Like, why would we care about him? He doesn't care about anything. I'm just like, okay. I'm like, yeah, I totally agree. I didn't cry about it for 3 weeks. No, I'm just kidding. But I got that criticism, and I was like, wow, that's that. I'm not writing ever again. And I honestly took a break from writing because of that. And I have a hard time wanting to submit stuff because of that, because it's like, hey, you just got like shut down. But that's the way it is. I fell short there, and I honestly, I didn't really give up, but I basically gave up. And that's the opposite of what you should do. If you fall a little short, you got to get back up, and you just got to keep going. Whatever it is. I mean, you can always work harder for the most part. A lot of people work really hard, but you can always try to work harder or to try a different method in what you're doing. I mean, there's always different things to do. Like, we get stuck in the way we do things. Humans are very, they're creatures of habit. We are, and I'm definitely the same way. We're creatures of habit, and we just focus on one thing, and we're like, all right, this is the way to do this thing. When in reality is, there could be 5, 10, 15, 20 different ways to do something, and you've only done 3 of them. So sometimes you have to think outside the box a bit, do it from a different perspective, and then you're like, oh, this way makes it so much easier, and now look, all this stuff is working. I hope that makes sense. I feel like I've just been rambling. So we'll see if that makes sense. Also, it's really hard to just continuously talk. Like, I've been taking so many deep breaths that I'm hoping it's not so loud on the mic, because I have to be kind of leaned in to talk to the mic. But I'm hoping it's not super loud, because I like have to take deep breaths. Like, when Eric was here, I could just take a break and breathe, and while he's talking, don't have anybody to take a break for right now. So it's definitely super weird. Like, this is the most I've ever just talked continuously. I don't really like it. I do want to talk about some funny stories. So I just talked about some serious stuff, and I think that'll hopefully be the last of the serious stuff for this episode, because I really got pretty serious there. But I do promise, as this episodes go on, you'll learn more about me, learn about the way that I operate, and why I'm doing the things that I'm doing. But I'll give it to you little by little, because obviously if I just give it to you all at once, it'll be a long episode, and there'll be no funny to it. So, but as you guys know, I work at a school, and I will just say this: you get some of the craziest stories working with kids. I work with kindergarten through 8th grade, and I do deal with high schoolers, but I don't see the high schoolers very much. So it's primarily kindergarten through 8th grade. And man, like the difference. First of all, seeing the differences in age, like when you're not hanging out, when you're, with the 2nd graders or whatnot, and then comparing that to like the 6th or 7th graders, it's like wow, it's so crazy. Like the dichotomy of the two, which makes sense. Obviously, they're different ages by like 4, 5, 6 years or whatever. But it's still like so weird to like experience that because like there'll be days where I'm going from a fifth grade classroom to 3rd grade classroom to kindergarten, so like to 8th grade, so it's like I'm bouncing all over these like age ranges, and I kind of have to change how I act around each one because obviously with the little kids you gotta be like more energetic and obviously more playful. I can be a little bit more serious with 5th graders and whatnot, and obviously with 8th graders or middle schoolers, like you can actually have full-fledged conversations with them and like very serious ones. But it's just so funny, and I hear and see the weirdest and funniest things on a daily basis. There's a couple that come to mind. And I'll share a couple of them with you guys right now. I don't want to share too many because I do want to have more stuff for future episodes, because I guarantee you I will talk about this topic multiple times because I have stories upon stories upon stories, and I've only worked there for not even a year. So there's this one story, and there's this kid, and he was talking to me, and this kid, he's super nice kid, and he's very random with some of the things he brings up. Like he came up to me one time, and he's like, "Hey," and I was like, "Hey, what's up?" And he was like, "Did you know that the sperm whale is a real whale?" I did know that. Thank you for telling me. And he's in 3rd grade, by the way. So, but I was just like, yeah, I did know. And he wasn't meaning that like in an inappropriate way. Like he doesn't know what sperm is. Like he anything like that. Because then he went to tell me facts about it. But the kid is he is slightly autistic, so he doesn't really look at you. So he turns away and starts walking away from me, and he's telling me all these facts about it, but I can't hear him. So I'm just like, oh, that's really cool, because I don't want to have him repeat himself because he's going and going. So he just says funny things like that to me sometimes, and he's a really nice kid, and I do love his facts. He knows a lot about like animals and stuff. He's a very smart kid. But there's this one time, I don't know if I should share. No, I'll share it. There was this one time he was like, "Hey, so my mom got a new house," and I was like, "Oh, that's awesome! Like you and I was like, "Are you excited?" He's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Yeah, you and your mom and dad and you guys, your brothers and whatnot, are moving into that house together." He's like, "No, just my mom." Oh, okay. Yeah, that's cool. That is cool. Like this kid just basically told me that his parents are like split up, but I don't know if he understands that they're split up. And then I was just like, oh, okay. It's like, I know I have a psychology degree, but I'm not going to be the one to break the news to you in case you don't already know. So I was like, oh, well, that's exciting. And I just walked away. I was like, I don't know what else to do here. So I was like, maybe he did know. I'm not going to rule out the possibility that he did know his parents weren't together anymore. But when you're in 3rd grade, I was like, who knows? So I was just like, I'm not gonna like shatter this kid's world right now, because that's no. So that was something really funny. I also have this kindergartner. Oh man, this kindergartner. She's super sweet, super nice, and it's the way she talks, and she kind of has a bit. I don't want to say it's a speech impediment, because when you're young, when you're like that young, like you just don't say words properly. But her L's sound like W's sometimes. So she'll be talking, and like this is the iconic one, is when it was like the winter and she'd be sick, her nose would start running a lot. And instead of saying, "Hey, I have a runny nose, can I, get a tissue?" because she's, a kindergartner, when she gets a runny nose, her world is ending. You might as well just like drop everything you're doing, because she starts to freak out. And so she starts to get like panic. She's like, she's like making those panic kid sounds, like almost not to the point of like whining, but just like kind of freaking out. When kids get like panicked, that's the sound they make. And if you're watching the video podcast, you can see it. But she puts her head up, like, so she's looking up basically straight, but she's still looking at you. So her head is facing straight up, but she's looking like in front of her, and she just starts going, my nose is weaking. My nose is weaking. And the first time she started doing that to me, it took everything, every fiber of my being and every part of my body not to just cry laughing, because it was so funny and so like cute at the same time, but also like I had to help her with this thing. But it's just, I've never heard the phrase as a runny nose as like my nose is leaking. So hearing that already was funny, but then hearing it with her little like speech impediment or lisp or whatever you want to call it made it so much funnier. And also like just the fact that she's freaking out about it, like, or something that's so like mundane and normal. I was just like, okay, I'll get you a tissue. And she's like, oh. And here's the other thing that she says. She doesn't say okay, she says ote. So she's like, ote, thank you. Oh my gosh, dude, it's so funny. And it was this joke that I had with one of my teacher friends there. I would always like joke about my nose is leaking to him and whatnot. And I joke about it to a ton of people. And I'm not making fun of her. I honestly think it's hilarious, and like so for the rest of my life, I'm pretty sure instead of saying I have a runny nose, I'm gonna tell people, hey, my nose is leaking. And if you know me, and if you know that if you know that story from me, then I'm gonna say my nose is leaking. I'm gonna put the W on it because I'm gonna put some respect on her name, okay? But man, kids are just so funny. Like it's just stories like that make working at a school honestly worth it. And there's so many other funny ones that I can think of probably. And obviously there are difficulties and challenges working at a school. Like kids can be difficult, and I was one of those difficult kids, so I know how difficult they can be. I was definitely not the best student. I did actually, seriously, I did well in school. Like I got good grades because my mom was very on top of that. So was my dad, but they were both very on top of that, which is something I'm very grateful for. They were very on top of me on my schoolwork, and that transferred over really well for me for college, because when I didn't have anybody like, telling me to do my work or whatnot, I still was doing it. But like I was not very well behaved. Let's just put it not that way. I was very rebellious. That's the word. I was very rebellious. And so when I have to deal with kids that are rebellious, it's hard for me to get frustrated. I do get frustrated because sometimes when it's like you expect a lot from certain kids, and when they're not acting the way you expect, or when they're just doing something that is dumb and they know it's dumb, it's just like, come on, like, why are we doing this? And I'll get frustrated sometimes. But it's hard for me to get frustrated because I'm like, I was that kid. So if anything, it's just karma for me being the difficult, frustrating kid when I was in 5th, 6th grade. So now I have to deal with those kids now. And I'm not saying that those kids are difficult, but obviously they can be difficult. Kids, anybody can be difficult at times if you're having a bad day or whatnot. But man, working at a school, it really changes you. Like, before the school year started, I was a bit nervous because I was kind of thrown into this job and I didn't really know what to expect from it. In the first couple of weeks, I was still kind of unsure, I was trying to be outgoing because obviously I'm an adult, but I'm fresh out of college. Like, and I'm very awkward. If you guys haven't noticed, I'm pretty awkward. So like having to like be social and interact with kids was kind of difficult for me. And I didn't have a ton of experience being around kids. I mean, people I've hung out with are people around my age for my basically my entire life. So having to go from that to like hanging out with, not hanging out, but like, working with 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old kids, that's just like, oh, it's a huge difference. But man, like the impact kids can make on you is insane. I finally like understand, like, oh, I understand why my teachers were the way that they are and why they dealt with the crap they dealt with, because even though there are difficult moments and difficult kids, like there are kids out there at the school that really make it, like they really make an impact on you, and you're like, wow, they make it worth it. And I think that applies to a lot of things in life. It's like I mentioned earlier when I mentioned my friend's message to me. It applies to stuff like that. It's like there may be ones that are there may be like difficult moments, but there are going to be like moments or people out there that really like they make it worth it. Like, okay, this is why I'm doing it, right? This is the type of stuff that makes me realize why I'm in the line of work that I'm in. You guys will definitely hear more funny stories from my work and my job. I'm trying to think of more right now. I don't have any off the top of my head, but I promise you guys will get more, and I'll try to think of more, and I'll write them down, because there's a ton of just funny moments that have made me laugh. And I do look forward to sharing those with you. I really do enjoy working at a school. It's really awesome to be able to make a change on kids' lives and to be able to like watch them grow. And the school year is almost over in a couple months, and I've seen so much growth from students just from September to now March, and it's been really cool to see. And it's kind of crazy because like when you're in school, you don't really see that. You don't really necessarily see your own growth. But like I can see it with almost every student. And it's like, wow, like this is kind of awesome to see. Like beginning of the year, they were struggling with this concept, and now they're just flying by with even harder concepts. They're just killing it. And so that's really cool to see. It's really cool to see that growth, and it's really cool to see like kids grow not only like education wise, but like socially and whatnot. It's really cool to see them like growing, and it's definitely like it's hard work, and there's hard days, and there's days that I come home and just like, why am I doing this? Why am I doing this? And definitely doesn't pay as much as I would like it to, but it's really awesome to be able to like not only have an impact on their lives, but to be able to be impacted by them and to have them have an impact on my life. And honestly, I use my psychology degree every day with those munchkins and those kids. So I definitely, the psychology degree has definitely come in handy a lot. Almost every single day it comes in handy. So I'm glad that I have that, because if not, I think my patience level would be lower, and it would make dealing with some of the kids and dealing with situations that I deal with a lot more difficult. Honestly, guys, I've gone for a pretty long time, a lot longer than I thought I was going to go. This was kind of a more serious episode, but I think it was really needed. I think it's good to have a really serious episode off the rip, is what I was going to say, but like at the beginning of this podcast series, because I think it'll give insight to what the future episodes can look like with me or with somebody else here. I do want to be able to get this serious with a guest here. I'm going to try to come out of my shell a bit and ask harder questions, and to make it more mental health oriented and talk about serious topics, because that's what I want to focus on while also being funny. But I will say it is kind of hard. It is kind of almost like intimidating to ask questions like that, because it's like, obviously mental health is such a personal thing, and I don't want to like make somebody open up about their really personal struggles in front of an audience of however many people that listen to us. So I will try to work on that though, and I will try to keep things lighthearted as well. I will try to find the balance. I'm going to end it there. It's been a really good episode. Before I go, I do want to talk about a few things. You can follow the podcast on TikTok at Frivolous Pod. If you go there Monday and Tuesday, you'll get a couple clips from the new episode that week. Get a little sneak preview before the episode actually airs on Wednesday. And if you go there Thursday or Friday, I will be uploading a TikTok that asks you guys for topics or anything you want me to talk about, and you guys can comment on that TikTok and mention things that you want me to talk about or ask my guest potentially. And if there's any advice that you're seeking, you can always mention that as well. Be like, hey, I'm struggling with this, and I was wondering what are your thoughts on it, and I can bring that up in the next episode as well. My filming days are going to typically be Saturday or Sunday. It's going to be on the weekend. This one I'm filming a little bit early because I'm gone this weekend. I don't have time to film it this weekend. But I feel like that's the best way to get you guys to like suggest topics or get advice from me, is if I post it on TikTok like a couple days before I plan on filming and recording the episode. You guys have time to comment, leave suggestions, and then I can look at those and I can pick and choose from that, and I can have topics to talk about. So that's what I'm going to do. So be on the lookout for TikToks on, Monday or Tuesday will be the sneak preview, and then Thursday or Friday will give you an opportunity to suggest topics or to seek advice on something that you need advice on. And if you're listening to this, you can watch the full podcast on YouTube. The YouTube is Frivolous Podcast. We already have 7 subscribers, which is like pretty crazy. Just kidding, 7's nothing special, but I'm happy that there's 7. But you can watch the full podcast there. I'll try to do like behind the scenes stuff on there too. Right now, I'm just kind of focusing on like getting the podcast format down, like getting organized with it. And once I get into a groove of it, I will upload things that are not just the podcast, like behind the scenes stuff and whatnot, or maybe like bonus footage on there. I'll try to do stuff like that because I will definitely have footage that I cut. So maybe I can put uncut footage on there. You guys can leave suggestions if you want down below in the comment section. Yeah, and if you're watching this podcast, it's available obviously where you're watching it right now or where you're listening to it right now. And it's also available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. It's available in a lot of places. If you use something that's not one of those 3 things, then I don't really know what you'd use. But yeah, I really appreciate you guys listening to this and taking time to listen to me ramble and talk to myself like a crazy person for, the past hour or so. I shouldn't say crazy person. It's not really a good term to use, but in this case, I'm describing myself, so it's okay. But I'm loving this. I'm having a good time. This went better than I thought. I really didn't think I was going to be able to talk this much, and the topics that I talked about were not even planned for like half of them, so I'm excited that I was able to kind of just think of things as I went along. And to end it, like one Dr. Fraser Crane would say, I'm wishing you guys, I hope you guys have a good week, and I'm wishing you guys good mental health going forward. I really appreciate you guys tuning in, and I will see you on Wednesday. Peace.